Hare Krishna kids, can you all hear me? Yes, show me a thumbs up. All right. So I hope you all are as excited as I am for today's session. Yeah, good, good. Keep showing me the thumbs up, okay? We will have a lot of interaction, so you all will be very soon on unmute too. So that's no issue. And today I've left the chat open for the time being so that we can have some interaction by the time the other kids are getting in. Yes. So we'll wait 2-3 minutes for everyone to just log in, and then we will start today's session. All right. I'm just trying to fit maximum children on my screen so I can see all of you all and have better interaction. My humble request, please, please, please put on your cameras. You know, sometimes it's so boring to speak to that blank screen. Yeah, so please, please put on your cameras. That'll really be nice. So Adi's asking me, when will the historic hero start? Oh, you were there for the session we did last time. Last May, that was. I didn't know you were there that time. Okay, you enjoyed that session? So maybe we'll have some more of that. But what we plan to do, Adi, now, hopefully, is have live lessons every month. And hopefully in this holiday season, we plan to do Bhagavad Gita for kids also. All right. So how many of you all will be keen if we do Bhagavad Gita for kids? And we'll do it non-stop in 15-20 days. How many of you all will be interested? In your chat boxes, tell me. Yes, no, in the chat. I will not be able to monitor all the hands up. So in the chat. Purnendu, you're wearing a mask at home. Is it so? Or you've done some other image? Oh, I was like, he's wearing a mask at home. My goodness me. Okay, so yes. Dhruvi saying yes. Sridhar saying yes. Purnendu saying yes. Good. Adi saying he's already done it. Very nice. Very nice. But you know something, Adi? Bhagavad Gita is something that you need to keep hearing and hearing and hearing, and throughout your life you should hear, because every time you hear, there is something new to pick up. All right? So with that perspective, keep hearing. Naman also says yes. Harav says yes. Good. So I think I'm so glad to see most of you all say yes. And that will give us inspiration to make sure that we roll this Bhagavad Gita in this summer season itself. All right. So I think we're quite a few now, and we should start the class. Mataji, are you okay if we start the class now? Just waiting for a response, and then I'll start. I'm so glad everyone is interested. All right. So going ahead with today's class, we'll start with this very first story. I thought I'll reconfirm with Mataji. Should I start, Mataji? We're 63 of us already. So yes, I guess the others. I think
we can go ahead.
We're 63 already. So I guess the others will join in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you,
But we'll start. Okay, kids. So, you know, yesterday, where did we leave? We left at the point where we were discussing positive attitude and how we shouldn't typically overreact to situations, and we need to be stable, and positive attitude basically helps us being stable, right? We stopped at that particular story. Today I'm going to take up an interesting, it's again a true story. You all have all heard of the Titanic, that famous 1912 incident where the luxury liner, the unsinkable as it was called, it embarked on its very first journey, and unfortunately it sank. But there was so much of hype when the Titanic was launched, and people queued up, and it was very expensive to get on board also. So the story that I'm going to tell you today is of the Clark family, who was based in England. And basically these people were in Scotland, and they were farmers. And being farmers, they are not very rich but not very poor at the same time, and they had 9 children. And this farmer had this dream that I want to get onto the Titanic, because it was, as I told you, it was like, the thing. Like, today, a big, say, a mall is launched, and everyone wants to go to that mall. So, similarly, this particular Titanic at that time was such a big, glamorous thing that everyone wanted to be on it. But it was not cheap, as I told you. So the Clark family, the farmers who had 9 children, he saved a lot of money, and whatever he had saved in a couple of years, all of that money, he typically went and he bought tickets for the entire family. So there were 11 of them, 9 kids. You may be surprised, but yeah, 100 years ago, people had such huge families. Today we have 1, 2 kids in a family, but at that time, even abroad, this is set up in the UK. It's in Scotland, this story. So they had 9 kids. They bought tickets. They were all excited, and but just a couple of days before the sailing date, a dog bit their youngest son. And at that time, rabies was a very a dreaded kind of a disease, which spreads from the dogs. So, like now, we all of us have experienced what quarantine is, or at least we've heard this word quarantine. Yeah, all of us have heard this word quarantine. So, at that time, that family was put in quarantine for 14 days, and on the 10th day was the sailing date, 10 days before this happened. But they had to be in quarantine for 14 days. And they were like, oh my God, how could you do this to me? All my money, all my savings. This was the family outing that we were all looking for, the Titanic and all of that. But they couldn't sail. So they were like really dejected and, sad. And then the Titanic went, and they got to know. But a day after, when they read the news in the newspaper that the Titanic had sunk, that is when, Mr. Clark looked up, and he was actually thinking, is this a tragedy or was it a blessing? So earlier he had that negative attitude. He was thinking only negative. But when this truth, came on surface, and he realized that it was actually a blessing, it wasn't a tragedy. So the moral basically is that, whatever happens in life, it happens for the good. And it happens, as we discussed yesterday, that everything is in order, and we just have to trust his will. So that is something that we always need to keep at the back of our minds, because that is what will help us develop a positive attitude. That is when we will be equipoised. The farmer story, whether it's this or that, you have to be always equipoised. So when we're equipoised, that is when we will look at things at the face value. We will not go so much into the depth as to अरे ये क्यों नहीं हुआ, अरे ये कैसे नहीं हुआ, and so on and so forth, because that will stop us from positive thinking. All right. But as I talk about positive thinking, thinking positive or negative is basically the way the mind works, right? And the way the mind works is called the perspective of the mind, right? What we decide to see is a perspective. Now, for example, if I were to pick up a glass, assume this is a glass, but this is actually, and if it's half filled with water, right? And if I ask you that, is it half full or is it half empty? Some may say it's half full, some may say it's half empty. That is what perspective is. Whether you want to see how much less is there, that's called the emptiness, or whether you want to see how much is it full. So this is basically what perspectives are. So my next story is all about perspectives. All right. So there was this very rich man, and he had one and only son. So obviously, being the only son, he would pamper him, take care of him. They lived in this lavish mansion with a sprawling garden and this huge Olympic-sized swimming pool, and he had everything. All right. So being that kind of a father, he wanted to have his son also experience what it is not to have all this. So he also wanted his son to experience that. So he said, okay, son, let's go on. He took him on a picnic. He said, I'll take you on a picnic today. And so they decided to go to the countryside. And typically the countryside is where, you have smaller villages and smaller houses. And, people are generally poorer because cities is where you make more money, and that's why they come and stay here. So he said, okay, let me take you there. He wanted to actually show his son what it is to be rich. So he said, I'll take you around and you'll get an idea, what life is about rich and what is about poor. This was a statement that you will come to know what it is about rich and what it is poor. So he was like, okay, son. So he took him to the countryside and he took him to this village. He showed him this house and there was a river nearby and they were basically farmers. And so it was like a day trip. He went in the morning, he went looking around, and then he came back in the night. And over the dinner table, the father, decided to ask the son, so son, how was it? Did you get an idea of what it is to be rich and what it is to be poor? And the son was like, yes, absolutely. He said, I was so glad to see these rich people. And the father was a little surprised as to what does he say. He says, what did you say, son? Can you just elaborate? What are you trying to say? He said, Father, we have one Labrador, and we went to this family. They had 4 dogs, and we have one pool, which is very large, but they have an entire creek, which has no end. And then we have this patio outside our garden, and then they have the entire field, which is open in front of their house. So the father was very surprised and happy also, because he was so happy to see the perspective of his son, which corrected his own perspective, of looking at things as black and white, rich and poor. But the son had a much wider vision, wherein he was so positive and he was so, forward looking, where he decided to see things in a much larger perspective. So that was more of a learning. He took the son out, to teach him. He landed up learning himself. All right. So this is what perspective can do to us. Radhe, I see your message that you can't hear me. Well, if I'm heard by everyone else, there could be a connection issue with you, with your internet. So my humble request is, if you can switch off your camera, maybe the bandwidth will improve and you'll be able to hear me better. All right. Naman says he can hear. Yeah. So I guess it's something to do with your bandwidth, Radhe. So as I was talking about perspectives, so perspective is all that makes you an optimist or a pessimist. Now, I would want you all to type in the chat boxes, what do you think? Who's an optimist, or what is optimism, or what is pessimism? All right. Y'all, the chat box is open. I would want to hear from y'all. What do y'all think about an optimistic, or who's an optimist, or who's a pessimist? Chitra says she can't hear. Please relog in. Yes, do log in and switch off your camera, Chitra. Maybe that'll help. Fiona said she doesn't know what an optimist is or a pessimist is. No problem, Fiona. You'll get the answer very soon. All right. I would want to see some more messages. Radha also says she doesn't have an idea. Okay. Optimist means positive thinking. Yes. Isha says she doesn't know. No problem. Piyush says seeing the positive side. Shreya also says thinking positive is optimistic. Okay, perfect. Krishna says see the good in a situation. Okay, that's positive thinking. That's an optimist. Okay. Ria says an optimist is someone who, I missed that. Thinking positive is what Amita says. Okay. Ambika says negative. What do you mean, Ambika, by negative? Negative thinking is pessimism. If that's what you're saying, you're right. Tanvi says, who is good? No, that is not what an optimist is. Tanvi, you'll get to know now. Anyway, Ekta says, pessimism is too negative. Okay, that's right. Pessimism is negative. Neil, maybe to be positive is optimist. Yes, Neil, it is to be positive. Yes. Manvi says, the feeling that future will be good or successful. That's optimism. Yes, perfect. Purnendu, everything will be good. Pessimism, everything will be bad. Perfect. Good. Very well said. Very well said. We should. 1 minute. Ambika, you said we should think negative. I didn't really understand that. Adi says negative thinking is pessimism. Yes. Krishna says negative thinking is pessimism. Absolutely. All right. So for the kids who are not clear on what optimism and pessimism is, you all understood the last story of perspective. That is the way of looking at things. So optimism and pessimism is an extension of that, wherein you will get to know with the story that what an optimist and what a pessimist is. But the kids who have answered in the chat boxes have rightly said optimism is basically looking at the positive or always being positive, and pessimism is always looking at the bad or just thinking negative, I would say. Okay, so this is a story of these two twins, and generally twins have a lot of similar characteristics. So but these two twins were these two girls were absolutely the opposite. One was always cheerful, happy. The other was always brooding, sulky, complaining, absolute opposites. So the parents were like really surprised. यार ये क्या हो रहा है? मतलब मेरे दोनों बच्चे, I have raised them the same way. ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है? It's surprising. Same parents, same upbringing, same surrounding, same things generally given. Everything is same. All right. So, but why is it so? So they decided to consult a doctor. They went to the psychologist and they said, this is the situation, and we're really troubled as to what do we do. So they say, the psychologist said, yes, it happens, but to try and bridge the gap between these two twins, I'll suggest you do an activity, and this activity you should do where both of them are present. So the reaction of each will help bridge the gap. So the optimist will remain optimist, the one who's always smiling, but the pessimist. So sometimes you need to be pulled up, and that's what the psychologist was trying to do. And he said maybe it'll help the other one, who's typically a pessimist. So what they decided to do is, it was their birthday, and the parents decided to give to the pessimist all her favorite things, her favorite video game, her favorite new laptop that she wanted, her favorite phone that she was eyeing, and she was also eyeing this beautiful. She liked good clothes, so this beautiful dress. So they packed all of that for her, and so the psychologist suggested that for the optimist, you pack in a nice box manure. That's basically soil manure. So these two gifts were given first to the pessimist, and the optimist is standing there looking, and this pessimist opens the gifts and she says, "Oh, but now there's a new version of a phone. Why did you get this one?" And then she opens the laptop, and then she says, "But my friend has a bigger, better screen." And then she opens a third gift, and again she has some complaint about the dress, and she goes on and on and on. And then she's like, "Never mind," and she's still sulking. And then they go to the other daughter and they give her this box, and she opens it, and there is manure inside. And this sister of hers is wondering, "I've got all of this, and she's got manure." And the reaction on that other girl's face, who's an optimist, is that she's still smiling, and she's throwing the manure up and says, "Wow, wow, you guys are kidding me." And the parents are also taken back as to what is she trying to say. And she says, "Well, the manure is here. That means the pony must be around. Where is my pony? You know, you've given me a pony as a gift. That's the reason the manure is over here." So that is the way an optimist looks at things. And though she got just manure for now, but she was so optimistic that even in that, she was thinking that it's not possible that I have this. I surely have something bigger and better. So this is what positive thinking in an optimist is. By nature, they are, always looking at the positive, right? Like we were discussing the situation yesterday that, we've all experienced in the last 1 year, being in a lockdown, being more constrained, can't go here, can't go there. Aaj mall khulla hai, aaj band hai, ye ho raha hai, wo ho raha hai. But we have to still be positive of things and look at the good that will ultimately come out. So one of the good is that we're all spending more time together with family. We're able to do more, connect more online, so this is what is happening. And if we decide to look at the good, we will stay good. Otherwise, we will be brooding, and that's not what we want to be, right? So, but generally, there are people who are always complaining. So, when there is lack of positive attitude, that is when you land up only complaining. And if we only complain, ultimately, what will happen is we will get into a negative mind frame, where that negative mind frame will, instead of helping us, it will just make us more uh, negative, and maybe it will help us just go uh, in our performance lower and lower and lower. So this story I had read about complaining, which came to my mind, and I thought I'll share with you all. So I titled it as "Complain, Complain, Complain," because sometimes that's all that is done. So this story is set up in somewhere in the hills, where there was a monastery, and typically in a monastery, the monks over there are are always meditating, are always trying to connect with the Lord, and that's how there is a lot of silence, and they are generally at ease all the time. So whenever a new recruit comes, whenever someone new comes to the monastery, they are first for a couple of years undergoing training to see whether they have it in them to become a monk or no. Like if you were to become an army, if you want to join the army, you will first undergo rigorous training to know whether, and test to know whether you're in for it or not for it, right? Only then you will be given entry. So similarly, this monastery had this rule that all the new monks, when they would come in for the first couple of years, they would undergo training. And in the training, what would typically happen is that, again, I'm getting these messages I can't hear. Shaurya and Prerna. Well, and the others are saying they can hear. See, my internet connection is fine. So my request is switch off your cameras. Maybe, the bandwidth will increase. Okay. So the rule in this monastery was that the new recruits will be allowed to speak only once in 2 years. That's it. You can speak only once in 2 years. And that also you will only be allowed to say 2 words. Can you imagine? After 2 years, only you can say 2 words. So this was their condition. So this new monk who had come, 2 years he was there. And after 2 years, when he came to his guru and he was allowed to speak 2 words, he landed up saying 2 words. Food, terrible. Then again, he was in, for 2 years, he couldn't speak. And then he came back after 2 years and he said again 2 words. The bed is lumpy. And then again, he was in for 2 years. And then he came back after 2 years. And then he said, I quit. I can't take it. And so basically, all he would do is, instead of focusing on becoming a monk whose job is to meditate, he landed up focusing on what is not there, and he was only complaining, complaining, and complaining. So obviously he was sent back, but he decided to focus on all the negatives that were there instead of all the positives that were there. Right? So if I were to ask you kids, that if y'all were to describe to me in 2 words again, okay, how your current life situation is, 2 words, okay, in the chat boxes, I will really appreciate your replies. 2 words on how your current life situation is. 2 words is all you have to use. Quickly, come on in the chat boxes. Let me hear y'all. What do you all have to say? Please open the chat, Mataji, so that I can hear them. 2 words to describe your current life situation, your current situation. Any 2 words. Okay, I'm getting direct messages. So that means it's not okay, but I can still say it's superb. Very nice. Tanvi says very good. Okay. Ria says Krishna, happiness. Very good. Naman says very good. Avni says lockdown, boring. Okay. Adi says good and bad. Fine. Dhruvi says very nice. Okay. Akshay says I love. Okay. You love your current life situation. Perfect. Navneet says lazy, stubborn. Okay. Brinda, happiness, cheerful. Okay. Radha says her father is sick. Okay. We pray that he gets well soon. Kanchan says enjoying with family. Okay. Radhe says father has COVID. Okay, Radhe, we pray that he recovers. He recovers. Padma says it's nice. And Dhruvi says family time. Purnendu says surrendering to the Lord. Okay. Tanay says boring. Okay. Isha says I'm happy. Okay. Ekta says good, improving. Okay. Chitra says family time. Okay, kids. So wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your replies. So if you see all your kids, typically each one has a way of looking at things. Some of you all are looking at the positives. Some of you all unfortunately have some current problems. It could be an illness. It could be the boring situation that you all are in. But my humble request to you all would be, look at the positive, and only then you will be able to develop something which I would say as optimism, because which is needed. If you don't have the optimism, how will you typically feel, like taking every year and taking every day in itself? So, a lot of you all are saying thankful to the Lord. A lot of you all are saying boring. A lot of you all are saying that, you all are not so happy. Okay. Happiness and sadness. I will come to that in my last slide before I close today's day. There is a beautiful note from the Bhagavad Gita that I would want to share with you all on happiness and sadness. But before that, I will tell you all the story of this great player of the 70s in the US, Arthur Ashe. He was this tennis player, and he was amazing, and he had won 3 single Wimbledon titles and many other titles that he had won. So unfortunately, towards the latter part of his life, he was struck with illness, and he had to undergo blood transfusion. And when he landed up taking that blood transfusion, what actually happened is that he landed up getting HIV, because he had to undergo some surgery of the heart. And when he underwent that surgery, he landed up getting HIV. Now, when he got that, that's when all the reporters, he was a very popular guy in the US. So all the reporters, they came to him and they said, it's so unfair that for no fault of yours, you just underwent a surgery and then you landed up getting HIV. And that's the kind of a thing that they all came up with. And this man, even with that illness, all he told to the reporters, and this was reported in the leading newspapers, he said, see, every year, around 500 million people begin to play tennis, and out of them, a few actually land up learning it. And out of them, few enter the the stage of getting to playing on a national level, and out of them few qualify for the grand slam, and out of that only two reach the finals, and out of that only one holds the trophy. And I have been lucky enough to hold that trophy so many times. Now, at that situation, when I was in, at that time also, I never complained, or never I looked up and I said, why me? Why am I the one? Why are not 500 other million people who are trying to play tennis in that situation? I didn't blame, anyone at that time. So now that I am in some trouble, why should I blame and say, why me? When I was at the peak of my career, I never said, why me? Now that I've unfortunately, got this particular infection and I'm going to be dying, he was at the last stage when he was detected. He said, why should I complain now? So this was a beautiful message that he left. He died at the young age of 49, but this was a beautiful message that he gave 1 year before his death. He died in 83. So in 82 is when he made public his illness, with this positive message that sometimes it was for no fault of his that he landed up getting HIV, but he looked at the positive. He said, remember, we were discussing yesterday that everything happens in our life because it is by the order of the Lord. So if it is there, it is for a reason, and we have to accept it. Now, many a times, when we are faced with such negativity, or you can say problems, or things that are not in our control or beyond our control, we land up getting into this negative shell, or we sometimes just look at the negative aspect of it, and we stop growing, or we get into a shell. So this next story that I'm going to tell you is something that will help you understand. The story is titled "The Rose Within," because each one of us has a rose within. You will come to know as I explain the story to you. So once there was this person who loved greenery around his house. So he landed up planting this particular this rose plant, and he used to water it every day. And as you see in the picture on the right side, when it starts growing, what you see initially is a covered bud and a lot of thorns. All right. So he said that from such a thorny plant, what will I get out? I'm not going to get anything beautiful out of this. So he stopped watering that plant. Now, when he stopped watering that plant, ultimately that rose plant died. Now, why I tell you this story is that if we like, within each one of us is this rose, and this rose is this soul that has been given to us by the Lord, and each one of us has something special which has come to us. like in the rose, every rose plant has something special, that's how it blossoms into a rose. But every rose plant also has a lot of thorns. Similarly, each one of us is this beautiful rose within, but we have a lot of these thorns, which are our faults, which come along with the rose. So we all have a lot of faults. God has given us that, but it is up to us how we decide to focus on the rose within, and we continue to nurture the rose, overlooking the faults, or we decide to not water the rose and let it die. Now, if we neglect ourselves and if we neglect the good in us, ultimately that spark, will die. But if we nurture it, that's when it will grow. Now, many a times it's not possible for us to know our own good. Sometimes we don't know what we are good at, but it is our friends and associates or family who actually can help us do that. And similarly, that's why they say, you should have good friends. If you have a good bunch of friends, they are for life. They will be your barometer. So you should always try and develop good friendship with like-minded friends. And similarly, you should also help your friends uh, see beyond themselves or see what they cannot see. So many a times that your friend has the capacity, but they are lagging for some reason. So it's your duty to motivate them. And if it's not within friends and family, then we need a guru. A guru or a teacher plays that role in our lives where they try and bring out that rose within. So all of us should try and strive to find at least one such teacher or one such guru who can help us in our lives find that strength. Okay. So the next story that I'm going to tell you is about one such child and one such guru. Okay. So there was this young boy, about 9, 10 year old, and unfortunately, he had lost one of his arms in an accident. But before that, he was very fond of judo, and he continued to be very fond of it. But he was like, I've lost one arm. How am I going to manage this? How am I going to really do this? So he went to a lot of teachers, but he didn't really find anyone who was willing to teach him judo. He had already learned a little bit, but he was not perfect in it. But then finally, he found this one teacher, and who said, I will train you. And so he underwent training with that teacher. He started spending some time, and the teacher started giving very basic stuff first to him. And then as time progressed, the teacher went on uh, explaining to him to practice only one move. All right. So he kept doing it. He was a sincere student. He kept doing it. So he kept doing it for like a month, and then another month, and then like 4, 5, 6 months. And over a year and a half, he was just doing this one move. So heart within his heart, he was thinking, when am I going to learn something else? Why am I only doing one move? And the tournament is like just around the corner. What am I going to do? So he was a little surprised, but then he did not dare ask his teacher because he had that faith that, what my guru is making me do is for my good. So the tournament was there, and he had to go. So first, so he knew some amount of judo. So even with that one hand, he went through the quarterfinals, and then he reached the semifinals. And luckily for him, he was doing pretty well. He managed to get to the finals. Now, in the finals, his opponent was bigger and stouter, and he was nervous. So he went to his guru and he said, what do I do? He said, just don't worry. Just go and fight as you've been told to. And remember, you've been taught one particular move. keep using that particular, use that move to the fullest. So he went first round, he was out. Second round, he again was not able to manage. So the referee came up to his coach and he said, "Are you sure you want to continue the fight? The boy can get hurt." He said, "No, let him just continue." And he told his boy, "Go ahead, just keep doing it and use the moves that I've taught you." And then finally, this boy who had one hand, he landed up doing that particular move which he had mastered. And when he used that particular move, within 3 moves, his opponent was knocked out. Now he won, and everyone was surprised. And he got the title and all of that. And then finally, he came to his guru and he said, that I have won. I know that, but I'm really surprised. You told me to only do this one move. How did I actually land up winning? So he says there are 2 reasons for your victory. One is you were sincere and you kept doing the right thing. And second is, the move that I taught you on purpose, I taught you this master move because for an opponent who is bigger and better, to strike you down, he needs to hold your other hand. That is the only break for this move. And since you don't have another hand, he had no way to break your move and you landed up knocking him down. So this is how, if you have the right teacher or a guru who can find the rose within and nurture that, that's when, you kids will understand that even if something may seem to be to your disadvantage or not so positive for you, it may turn out to be positive. So for that we need to find someone. We should always have this one person, I would say, who can help us find uh, the rose within, or as I would say, the positive that we have within. So before we get, I open this floor for discussion. I'll get on to this last slide for today, which I want to share with you all. It's from the Bhagavad Gita. So we've discussed over the last 2 days how we need to always think positive and be optimistic and keep reminding ourselves that there is this spark that the Lord has given all of us. And through various stories that we've seen, that uh, tragedy, problem, it could be illness, it could be a life situation like now Corona, all these things will come and go, will come and go. Okay, there's this beautiful verse which reinforces this point from the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna tells us that all this happiness and distress is like seasons. They come and they go. All we need to do is learn to tolerate and sail through them with a balanced head without being disturbed. All right? Happiness and distress, like seasons. It's a summer season now. Is it any use complaining, "Arey, bahut garmi hai, bahut garmi hai, bahut garmi hai"? No, it's going to come and it's going to go. We have to learn to tolerate. We have to be equipoised. Like that story we heard of the farmer, when the horse came, and the horse went, then again it came, again it went, and his son was injured. He was equipoised. So we have to treat any kind of happiness or distress that comes into our life with a balanced approach. And if we do that, that's when we will not be disturbed. And if we are not disturbed, that's when our mind will always be positive, because it will always look at the good in a situation. So, like a season, we look at the positivity. Similarly, we have to learn to be equipoised in whatever situation. And if we're equipoised, if the mind is equipoised, that's when we land up being positive or optimistic. So for the kids who were not really clear what optimism and pessimism, I hope through some of these stories you've understood that optimism basically is always looking at the good and the positive and dealing with things in a perspective where you're not disturbed. You're like, fine, exam hai, to bhi theek hai, no problem. Exams will come, exams will go. We need to prepare. Okay, not get paranoid. We need to prepare. Similarly, there is corona. We need to prepare. Wear a mask, wash your hands, don't go into crowded areas, so on and so forth. Prepare, not to be paranoid. All right. So now the floor is open. In fact, I will have everyone unmuted. And like yesterday, I would like you all to share either anything that comes to your mind from what we have heard today, or anything else that you all would like to share pertaining to the topic that we have discussed of optimism and how we have to be balanced at all points of time, and we need to be non-pessimistic, we need to be optimistic. So for the kids who typed in those 2 words about the negative things that they were going through in life, my humble request is look at the positive. You'll have so much more that so many people in this world don't have. If you Google and if you see the kind of life people live in other areas, it could be Africa or the underdeveloped places, you will really know we need to just be thankful to the Lord for everything that He's given us. And that thankfulness and that gratitude helps us be even more positive. Okay. So, Mataji, I request you to unmute everyone so that we can have interaction for a couple of minutes, though. Yeah, we have another 5-7 minutes to go. So it'll be nice if we can have some participation.
I have to leave now.
Sir.
Okay, so one at a time. My request is first is your name and then what you would want to say. First, start with your name, please.
Prabhuji,
My name is Fioni.
Fioni, yes, Fioni, please.
I am 8 years old, so probably you had just told that last story which you were telling. So actually, I wanted to say I know judo, and you were talking about that. Before that story, there was that you were telling about that girl, why me girl? Like she wanted that tomorrow. You had told this story that girl wasn't selected in the sports Olympics, and her mother had told her like she was making a cake and she was doing.
Correct. That means everything in your life has to be in order, and then only the cake of your life will be baked. Absolutely right.
अरे छोकरा बोले.
Yeah, Fiona, tell me. Okay, so that's fine. Ria, you want to say something? You've raised your hand.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, Ria, please tell me.
Sir, at which time will class? I wanted to say I really like.
Okay, I'm going to now have to mute all of you all, and again I'm going to have to raise one by one because.
Which time is Prabhu, can I?
Okay, we're going to mute all, and I'm going to raise one by one. Okay.
Silence.
So we'll have Ria speak now. Okay, Ria, one at a time. And after Ria, we'll go to Padma, who's raised her hand. So please raise your hand, and we'll have one person speak at a time. Ria, you can unmute yourself. 1 minute. Ria?
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Ria, please tell me.
We are from the Netherlands, and we really liked the session of today and also yesterday. So thank you very much for that, Prabhu. And you also said something about the Bhagavad Gita, and that helps us a lot with understanding material things and feelings that we have. And it also gives us a very positive perspective on how to deal with things and see situations. So that also helps us, the Bhagavad Gita. So thank you, Prabhu.
Absolutely. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad. So this is a beautiful verse from the Bhagavad Gita, and you can just read it and always remember this, that happiness and distress is like seasons. They'll come and go. All right. Thank you so much. Now, next we can have Rakshita.
Yes.
And then Krishangi has raised her hand. We'll have Krishangi speak next. So Krishangi
Yes,
or Rakshita, any one of you
Prabhuji.
can start. Yes, Rakshita.
Prabhuji, I wanted to ask that, can you show me the slide again of the story you told about the boy and her father takes him to the picnic?
Perspective, the one,
Yes.
okay, I will try and share that slide again. Okay, not a problem. Yeah. Any question you had related to that slide, tell me.
No, I wanted just to see the slide because when you were telling my slide, I could see the previous slide only.
Okay, so this is the slide where basically the boy who lives in a mansion, you know, and when he's taken to a so-called the countryside, where he lands up seeing that I have a big swimming pool, but they have an entire creek to themselves. I have a courtyard outside my house, and they have entire endless fields where they can see the horizon. So that's his perspective of looking at things. Okay, Rakshita? Yes, Krishangi, what do you have to say?
Prabhuji, the verse you have from Bhagavad Gita, I know that shloka.
Oh, beautiful. That's very nice that you know that. It's a nice shloka. You should learn it. Great. Okay.
Prabhuji, can I
Now
tell it?
next, you want to recite it?
Yes.
Well, the meaning is more important, but go ahead, recite it. Yes.
Matraspashastu panteya sitashto sukha dukkada agma paino nityasya samsitikhyasva bharatah.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Always remember that. Always remember that. Okay. Yes, Naman. 1 minute. I'll try and unmute you, Naman.
Prabhuji, I just wanted to say that this verse Matra Sparshastu Panteya, it is it and the previous word Dehinosmin Yatha Dehe, these two are also related.
Well, yes. So that's a different perspective. Matlab, Bhagavad Gita has a lot of things which are related. But why I brought this one verse particularly to you all is essentially to show that one of the ways to look at positivity, always being positive and optimistic, is thinking that things in our life are like seasons. They will come and go. So when you think like that, automatically you tend to become positive and not be attached to a particular thing, whether it's good or bad. It will not always stay. So always you can just remember that. Yeah, Yatashri, please go ahead. I'm trying to unmute you.
Hello, Prabhuji.
Yes, Yatashri, please go ahead. Yes, what do you want to say, dear? Please. Yatashri, you can speak, please. Okay, then next is Srinika. Srinika and Anisha. I've unmuted you all, please. Anything you want to ask, say, share, please.
I have something to say that the boy in the picture that is in the slide, he's actually comparing himself.
Which one I talk about? The judo story? Which one are you talking about?
The one with the boy that went to the countryside.
So the boy who went to the countryside is preparing. I didn't really understand what you're saying there.
The boy that the slide that says
Perspectives. Yeah, this is the slide. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. The
Yeah.
boy
What
in
about
it is-
that?
The boy in it is comparing himself to the poor people.
Yes. So his father is comparing to the poor people, and he wanted him to experience that. But the boy has a different perspective of looking at things. He did not look at it as, he landed up seeing the positivity of that. That means if I have a swimming pool, they have something which is bigger. They have the entire river to themselves. That's why I say perspective.
Oh.
Perspective is the way of looking at things. Remember, I gave you the example. If I show you a bottle or a glass which is half filled with water, you may see whether it's half filled or it's half empty. So that's again a perspective, whether you see that it's half filled or half empty. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so Shaurya, Sachin, Savant, you can go ahead with your question, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You can hear my voice?
Yes, Shaurya, you're unmuted, please. Go ahead. Okay, then if you're not answering, then we have Sri Arya.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes. Go ahead, dear. What do you want to say?
Nothing, Prabhuji.
Oh, you raised your hand. I thought you have a question or you want to say something.
Nothing, Prabhuji.
Okay, so then we have Madhvi. She's raised her hand. Madhvi, something that you want to say?
Prabhuji, my question is that if we see, if like I want to go to the bouncy castle and I booked it already, but I get in quarantine and I think, oh, why did I get in quarantine and those things? So how can I understand that in the future it may be good for me?
So see, you know the story that we heard about the Titanic? All
Yes.
right, where he had saved all his money and he gave it in and he didn't go. So maybe you look at it from a perspective that you didn't go and you're asked to be quarantined for the good, because it could make your health worse. Look at the positive, or it could make your family's health. It could affect you in some way. But that place, if you didn't go today, doesn't mean you will not go another day. You can go some other day. So if God has done something for now and he's not sent you there, it's for the good. So always try to see that if it happens for a reason, and the reason is always good because it's the decision of the Almighty. That's why we even discussed yesterday that we have to have faith in what he does is always for the good. Okay? Okay, Navneet. I'll unmute you and we can just go ahead with your question too.
How can I stop being lazy and stubborn? And I already know the verse.
How can you stop being lazy and stubborn? Okay. So
All right.
typically, you know, the good thing is what, Navneet, you yourself are saying that you already know that you are saying that I'm lazy and I'm stubborn. You already know that. So if you know that, so it's like if I know I have a headache, I'm going to take a medicine, right? Similarly, if you know you're lazy, then make sure you tell your mom that to give you so many activities in a day that you don't have a chance of being lazy. All right. And as far as stubbornness is concerned, again, you know, you're stubborn with your parents or with outsiders also.
Both.
Oh, okay. So,
My parents more.
well, first and foremost, I would feel stubbornness is something that comes from that thinking. You may have that, you know, that I am Navneet, I am something. Okay. Do you have that thinking in you? Because if you don't have that thinking, you should think that I am just like what everyone else is. So why should I be stubborn about something? Yeah. And make sure if you listen to your elders, and they will only guide you the right thing. So if you listen to them, automatically, even if you want to say no, say yes. So slowly your stubbornness will also go down and your laziness will also go away. And the next time we meet, which is hopefully a month later, that time I'll ask you whether it's gone down or not. Okay, Navneet?
Okay.
Okay. Akshaya has a question. So
Hare Krishna.
Akshaya, can Akshaya be unmuted, please? So he's put a direct message in the chat. Akshaya, please unmute it. And someone wants the Bhagavad Gita slide. I'm going to be putting that also. So for someone who wanted to note the Bhagavad Gita slide and you've messaged me in the chat box, I've shared that with you. So I think last two questions, Avnish and Akshaya. All right.
Prabhuji, can you explain again the last story?
Which story, my dear?
That boy will be in the hospital and the baby is landed up.
No, 1 minute. Which story? Sorry, I didn't get that. Which story are you talking about?
That one player will be there, Prabhuji.
The judo, the karate story.
No, Prabhuji. One player will be there. He will be in the hospital and the baby will be landed up. No, Prabhuji.
I'm really not understanding which story you're talking about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the recording with you. I'll put the recording on the group so you can just hear that again. Okay? Avnish, I think that'll be the last question we can take. We're already time up. Yes. So Avnish, your last question for the day. And Purnendu also has. So we'll probably take two questions. Purnendu and Avnish. Whoever can start first. And please remember, tomorrow we're going to take real life stories of people who've overcome various hurdles only through positive thinking and being optimistic. And these are all real life stories of people who've achieved great success in life. We will take that tomorrow. Okay? So, Avnish,
Hare
yes.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Boliye, beta.
Do we have recordings for the?
So today's recording I will share. Yes, we have today's recording. I will share with you. Anything else you want to say, dear?
And how to overcome the pessimistic lives?
So read this line. What is there on the screen? Just read it aloud so that everyone can hear. And you will get how to overcome pessimism from the lines which are there on your screen. Please read it aloud.
O son of
Kunti,
the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their appearance in due course are like appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense
perception. Okay, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So basically, what Lord Krishna is telling us through this verse, and that is something we need to remember to overcome pessimism, is that we are pessimistic. Why? When something is not going right in our life, correct? So if we remember that everything that happens in our life is non-permanent, it is like a season which will come and go, come and go, come and go. If we remember that one point itself, we will then not be disturbed because we know it is not permanent. Today, if I'm in a problem or today, if I have some issue, tomorrow it will not be there. So thereby, when you have that thing, your pessimism can be turned into optimism by remembering that this too shall pass. Like the seasons, this will also pass and another season will come. Okay? Purnendu,
Yes,
now
Prabhuji.
over to you. I hope I've answered your question, Avnish.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, Purnendu. Last question for the day.
It's not a question, like most ofly I just wanted to say something do you know who was asking about the last story, something about the last story?
No, anyway, just go ahead. Say what you wanted to say. Go ahead.
No, it was just I was saying that you could go through this all slides and you could just ask that which one of it was.
No, it doesn't matter.
She
We
was
don't have that
asking
much
to
time
her.
now. I'm going to share the recording. So if anyone had anything, if they didn't hear the story for some reason or missed a slide for internet connection or whatever, you can go through the recording. Okay? So Hare Krishna, we meet tomorrow again. And I will share the recording so that whoever has missed for whatever reason can go through it again. All right? See you all tomorrow, and tomorrow we take life lessons from real life heroes. Okay? Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Good day.
Hari Bol Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.